Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. We are coming off one of the most anticipated fight night cards of the year, so you know we're going to talk all about that, especially since last week's show was so gaming heavy. But we're still going to hit both sides of the fence, so don't worry. Scott, how are you doing today?
It's a relief to be done with writing about Long Island, which I've enjoyed. I enjoyed the process of, as I think we mentioned last week, I got to cover the event. It was a good time. I had a good time covering it, and it's always fun to write about this sport. But you know what? Now I can take just a little bit of a breather.
Dude, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I don't know if you saw because you were so head down on this Long Island card, but like I spent the entire last week writing Sonic Frontiers features based on the cover story.
Yes, because you wrote so many, I couldn't miss.
Yeah, so I wrote 4 articles and did 1 video. It was a rapid fire interview with the head of Sonic team, basically, just kind of half serious, half funny questions. And then did you have to go fast? You got to go fast. It was a rapid fire question. So yeah, a rapid fire interview. So they were coming fast and furious.
Go fast.
But I had a great time. I loved digging deep. Sonic's my boy. And the community was just phenomenal. Like there's such a passionate community. And I was worried because sometimes that can be a double-edged sword, as we've seen in MMA, where it's like, all right, these people really love this sport. But if you cross them, or if you do them wrong, or if you don't like do the job that they expect you to do, they can turn on you. And I had a concern that I wouldn't be able to provide enough information. But the community really loved the information that I gave them. They were terrific. I could not be happier with the way it all turned out. That said, when I turned my computer off on Friday evening, I was like, I am so happy I don't have to write about this game anymore for a little bit. Like, I'm happy to cover it again, like a couple months down the road when there's another preview beat available. But for now, I need a couple weeks not writing about Sonic Frontiers.
Would you say it's good in bursts?
So Scott, this last weekend gave us. It is good in bursts, I guess.
No, but seriously, it is.
yeah. I mean, but like that, I can sympathize with you in like kind of like the same time frame as well. You spent all week writing about UFC Fight Night Long Island. I spent all week writing about Sonic Frontiers. We both had a blast doing it, and we're both kind of glad that we can take a breather now.
Yes, indeed. But I guess before we even kind of get into what happened at the event, I should just kind of talk a little bit about my experience being there. Because I mean, you were watching the fights. You probably saw me on TV.
I didn't look for you, but
sir, if you ever watch any of the fights again, I'm like front and center, right behind the where the blue corner comes out between rounds and stuff. I mean, I was watching some of the fights for my other podcast where we go back and score the rounds, and I'm watching. I'm like, yep, there's me. I'm wearing kind of like a sea green teal type of shirt. If you ever watch any of the fights, you're going to see me.
I'll have to go back and watch them. There are a couple that I actually need to go back and watch because I missed. I had an unexpectedly long morning at IKEA. And
that's your fault because you should expect an unexpectedly long morning.
Here's the thing. I got a notification that a thing I've been waiting to come back in stock came back in stock. So I ran to IKEA real quick, got there within 1 hour of them opening. All 7 of the ones they got were sold out.
Ooh, brutal.
And so I was like, all right, let me find an alternative. And then I didn't find an alternative. And then, you get sucked into the IKEA showroom. So I actually missed a big chunk of the prelims, including Burgos Jordan, which I'm so upset about.
Oh, no. I mean, it didn't turn out to be the fight of the night that I think people were expecting it could be a contender for. But it was an interesting fight. It was a good fight. I don't think anyone was bored by it by any stretch.
So I told my dad that there were fights on. He always watches whenever it's on ESPN or ABC. And if there's a pay-per-view, they usually have the prelims on ESPN. So I'll let him know, hey, there's a pay-per-view tonight. That means prelims on ESPN. He'll usually tune in and text me back and forth. He hadn't texted me anything. So I didn't know if he was tuning in or anything. Then I get a text as I'm maybe 5 minutes away from my house in the car. I didn't think Burgos won that one. And I'm like, oh no, I thought I had more time. That was one. I mean, aside from the main event, that was the one I had circled on my calendar. But yeah, so I do have to go back and watch that one. And then I know there were a couple finishes earlier on in like the card that I need to go back and watch.
It was a good card. And, you know, being there in person, it definitely felt like it moved along really well. I don't think anything really felt like a drag, at least to me. I'm curious what anybody at home was thinking, but, you know, especially later on, up until the main event, unfortunately, the weird ending, which we'll get to in a moment. I thought it was a pretty exciting card, especially the Sumudarji. Well, he lost, but against Matt Schnell.
Oh my God.
I mean, that round two, that's like round of the year contender.
How was the atmosphere in the arena for that?
So here's the thing.
Uh-oh.
After Shane Burgos won, me being there in a media capacity means that I'm not just there to sit and watch fights and relax. So I ran upstairs because I was going to, you know, be part of the media availability for Shane Burgos, which was great. You know, I fully accept that you're going to miss stuff, right? But I go up there, and unfortunately, Shane never came. So I was up there for no reason. And I mean, they had the TV on with the fights, and like I'm like half watching while I'm also writing my story about Burgos. And yeah, so I didn't really get to, not only did I not really watch it live, I wasn't even there. I wasn't there in the arena for it. So that was kind of stinky. I'm telling you though, if it had only been that Burgos was there afterward, like UFC had said he was going to be, and I don't think this is Shane's fault. I think there was a miscommunication somewhere, at least for relaying information to the media side.
Mm-hmm.
I would have accepted it. I would have accepted that. Okay, you know, I'm doing my job. Sometimes you're going to miss stuff, but I went up there and I literally missed the whole fight for nothing, and then I missed the next fight for nothing too. Like I could have just gone back down, or I could have not gone up to begin with. So that's where I'm just like, man, now I feel cheated a bit.
I will say that your description of going to the media availability and then you kind of miss some stuff, and you just take that for granted, right? You just know it's a given that you're going to be missing some stuff.
Yeah,
it reminds me of when we on the gaming side have to cover like E3 streams and like presentations and press conferences. And it's like, I'll be like, all right, well, we have all hands on deck. We're writing news. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to cover this announcement. So like you stop listening to the stream, you stop watching the stream, and you're just typing. And then you try to get caught up, and like everybody's like freaking out. Like, what did I miss? What did I miss? And then of course, like, you know, a radio show or like a podcast will want me to come on and talk about like all the announcements. And it's like, well, now I have to like watch the stream all over again because I missed like 70% of the announcements because I was writing up a news story. And it's like, yeah, I totally like it's funny how like there are some parallels there.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I guess, technically, really, when you get down to it, sports is entertainment, right? It really is just a form of entertainment,
especially MMA.
Yeah, indeed. And then, you know, games obviously is entertainment too. So it makes a lot of sense. There's some parallels there and that kind of thing. But at the very least, and you know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm making a bad assumption here. At the least, I would think if you're watching like a stream and then you miss the stream, all you got to do is catch up on it. When you miss a live fight because you were there, you can never get that back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to make any bad assumptions here.
There is something to be said about being a part of that kind of like zeitgeist of like everybody seeing the announcement at the same time.
Sure. Yeah.
But you're right. To an extent, like, you know, you don't really miss much as long as you don't go on social media and like get spoiled. But it is like, oh my God, they're going to announce like a new Smash Brothers DLC character. It's like everybody's just like watching together and live tweeting it together. But yeah, like it's to a lesser extent than like not being in a live stadium for one of the greatest rounds of the year, if not the greatest round of the year. But I mean, I don't know. Like that round was definitely up there in terms of like some of the most chaotic rounds I've ever seen.
And you know, even Caposa, I think, was saying that it was just like, man, who's obviously for people who don't know, he's like kind of the uber fan of MMA. He's like the expert in terms of like fandom, especially on the regional scene, but obviously, you know, UFC level as well. He's a Long Island guy, so he was at the fights, and yeah, it's unfortunate that I heard this was one of the wildest things he had experienced live too. So I was like, I could have been there.
Caposa reminds me of Wario 64. I don't know if you follow him, right?
Oh,
the
yeah,
guy who does all the deals.
Long time, actually. Way before it blew up with the PS5 stuff.
Yeah, so like, yeah, same here. But like, where everybody's like, how the hell does he keep up with all of this stuff and like
Yeah.
tweet it all in real time? Like, because that's the way. Like, it'll be like 3 a.m. and like Kaposo will be tweeting about some like Russian fight league, and it's like, when does this guy sleep?
Yeah,
And
I
that's
don't
how it
know
is with
how he
Wario
sleeps.
64.
I
Like,
would
it's
love
like
to know how
24
much he
hours a day.
sleeps. That's gonna
And
be
how many hours a year does he watch MMA?
more than me. It's my job. He
Like,
watches a lot
shout out
more
to
than I
him though.
do.
Like, those are two must follows if you're a fan of this podcast. Like Kaposa, which his handle's
It's at
Grabaka
Grabica Hitman.
Grabaka
Is there an
Hitman. Yeah,
underscore?
I think there is. And then Wario 64 is just amazing for like deals and occasional news on for the gaming side. But like, he'll like Prime Day, he is tweeting up a storm. Like Black Friday, like those are essential files, especially if you're like looking for like a PS5, you can't find one. He will tweet when things are coming in stock. But yeah,
Yeah,
both
it's at
like
Grabica underscore Hitman. That was the nickname, by the way, of Kazuo Mizaki. I don't know if you remember him.
oh no, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, no, he was really good. He was in Pride. He was in Strikeforce. I think he retired off a win against like Paul Daly or something like that.
Oh.
Like he could have kept fighting. He was just like, no, I'm done.
The best kind
He
of
definitely
retirement.
he was UFC caliber for people who are like maybe only UFC guys. He was UFC caliber. He just didn't go.
Oh, okay. But you know what? Anything else you want to talk about with like the live stadium experience attending this event before we actually talk about the fights proper?
Well, I would. The only thing I would say, and this is just a brief thing of caution, as my judging expertise and understanding judging and that kind of thing. I'm not an expert judge, but I understand how it works. Is my point. You get a very different feel for what happened in a round when you are live than you are watching on TV. And the one thing I would even point out is just think about the times where you're watching and maybe there's one fighter on one side of the screen and one fighter on the other, almost like the UFC video game like view, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that ideal view where you can see the strikes landing. Sometimes the judges might be watching that, and instead of them being on the other like opposite sides of each other, they're like directly in front of one another. It is very hard to see how strikes land. And for anyone who watched the Emily Ducote win over Jessica Penne, there's a point in round 2 where Jessica Penne, and I had a better view of this than the TV. Jessica Penne clinches up in the middle of the cage, kind of like a Muay Thai plum, and lands a couple knees. And on TV, they're right in front of each other. You can't tell what those knees were, but when you are there, and I had them more like the UFC view from where I was sitting, you can tell these are really good strikes. So the only thing I want you to take away from that is if you think you know who won the round and you think the judges are wrong, they might have had a better view than you.
Yeah, it's always tricky because it's like, all right, because judges don't have a monitor, right?
They do. But I mean, when you think about it, if you're live, you definitely want to be able to watch it the right way. But once you have identified that you have a bad view or somebody walked in front of you to look down at your screen, you've already missed something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's always been a tricky thing. So it's like, all right, they're stationed at different parts around the octagon. How do they rectify or reconcile the fact that like there are like different views that these judges are going to have? They're all going to have different perspectives. Like, all right, how did that one judge dissent and scored a 10-9 for that guy instead of everybody else was scoring at a 10-9 for that guy? And it's like, well, he just has a complete, like, literal different perspective, not like
it's a
different,
truly
like, philosophical
different point of view physically in the world.
Yeah, and
you can't even change that.
Thing.
I mean, they may also perceive things differently too, but also there's the literal fact that they're not in the same location, and that can be for better or worse. But that is the reason why we have 3 judges. So basically, on the whole, you're going to get 2 people who saw it the right way, the quote unquote right way.
So going back to my dad's text that I told you about.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you think Burgos won or do you think Jourdain won?
Well, watching it from my seat, I definitely thought Burgos won. I thought he won the first 2 rounds, and I thought maybe in the 3rd round he got beat up enough that it could have been a 10-8 and thus a draw. But that's not. No one scored it that way. Actually, no one had that particular scorecard. There was one judge who did score it a draw, and it was because he had the first round for Jourdain, which I can see the argument for, and then he had a 10-8 score for Burgos in round 2, which I can see the argument there too. But I do think that I felt like probably Burgos on the whole won that fight anyway. That's just how it felt like to me. But good fight, close fight. I don't think he got a hometown discount. I think it's just the way it was.
Yeah. I mean, I still need to go back and watch it, but everybody talking about it after the fact and tweeting about it makes it seem like it was definitely one that's worthwhile to go back and watch.
It's a worthwhile fight, independent of how it ended. I mean, just go back, watch it. It's an interesting fight because I think the first round is like a good mixing of the martial arts, and then the second round is like more grappling, and then the third round is more striking. It's kind of like a good display of everything.
So, where does Burgos go from here?
Burgos, I think, well, first he is a free agent. He said he fought out his contract. Mm-hmm. It
Dana
sounds like
he wants to resign.
He most definitely wants to stay. Dana said he most definitely wants him to stay because I asked him. He called him a savage.
Yeah, I did see that quote.
Sounds like they're very much in the Shane Burgos business, but I imagine he'll get a nice bump up in pay. That he had some pretty good results, and I think they found that they can do a little bit, promotion wise with him too, especially in this area when they come here. So he got real good pops around here. He's definitely affable. He's approachable. I've had conversations with him before. Nice guy. But he
doesn't show up for media availability and makes you miss Schnell versus Sumoderji.
I won't fault him for that. I'm almost positive that was a miscommunication from the UFC staff. Not that I'm jumping down their throats, but I'm sure they would admit that there was some miscommunication there.
There was a line cut in the game of telephone, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of what happened. So, no, when he got back there, man, he's great. He'll answer all the questions, and he usually throws in several F-bombs, which does make it tricky for a print outlet to worry about. But you just got to make sure you scan for all those F's and S's and stuff. Yeah.
Do you do like asterisks, or do you do like brackets to say expletive?
We are the New York Post. We're a little more forgiving. So what we do is, if it's the F word, we do F-K.
Okay. So we do F-dash, and if there's an ing on it, we just put ing. So
right.
Like
we would do the same thing. It would be for king.
Okay.
What we do.
All right. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, we're going to get back to the fights themselves because there were a lot of good ones to talk about. Yes. But like talking about the media availability, I saw some of Dana's answers or lack thereof in his media availability.
Some of those were directly to me. Yeah.
Were you one of the people who was asking about Nate Diaz?
Yeah. I asked the first follow-up question. So like when Dana kind of started going off, I don't think he went off on me. And honestly, if he did, whatever, like
he's not going to play that game.
I don't really get browbeaten. Yeah. There was he's like, I'm not going to play that game. I'm like, I'd pick a more fun game than that. Like,
I'm not going to play that game where interviewers ask me questions and I answer them.
Well, there's that, but obviously, like, I don't know. I just asked reasonable questions, and he just didn't really feel like answering them. That was
in the words of Mark Raimondi, legitimate questions.
There's legitimate questions. Yes, indeed. My good friend Mark. He's my friend. I don't want to overstate it. Me and Mark get along very well. But anyway,
mortal enemy Mark Raimondi.
My mortal enemy. My predecessor at the New York Post from many years ago.
Really?
He was like the first guy who took the lead on MMA UFC coverage. So
I used to love listening to him and Shaheen Al-Shadi when they were both doing the A-Side live chat at MMA Fighting. That was always really great Q&A podcast content.
Mark's terrific people. You couldn't say a bad word about him unless you hated him asking legitimate questions. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. No, yeah, Dana did not really want to engage in Nate Diaz talk. And look, he owes it to us to answer questions about Nate Diaz and this whole contract thing, because there's something weird here. Someone's not telling the whole truth, whether it's Nate or Dana or both. And look, how far can you throw Dana compared to how much you can trust him? I don't know. But even Nate, you have to start to wonder, okay, if he's just saying things for bravado or what, that something is not adding up here, because my understanding of UFC contracts is they do have to offer you fights.
Yeah.
Now, an offer, if I understand right, can be as simple as a verbal offer. It doesn't have to be a formal offer. So they can be like, hey, you want to fight this guy? And they'd be like, no. And that counts. This is what I've heard anyway. So
okay,
maybe they said that to Nate and he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. And they're like, we got what we needed.
How many times has Dana come out and said, oh yeah, we offer him fights, he turns them down, like about other fighters?
Sure.
He says that all the time.
I ask him to say, "Is Nate turning these down?" And he's like, "I'm not doing that game." Like,
yeah, because
it's not a game. It's truth seeking.
There's something weird about it, right? Where he doesn't want to say it because maybe he says it and it turns out not to be true, and then that could be used in some way against him in the future. Who knows?
Put it this way, there's a lot we really don't know about UFC contracts. We know a lot thanks to good reporters like John Nash, who do great work for Bloody Elbow, covering all the financial stuff. If you're into fighting and interested in the numbers, he's the number one guy to follow, and I recommend that as well. We're just a show that's going to tell you who to follow now. That's all. But no, John is great. But yeah, something's kind of weird here. Something doesn't add up. But it was appreciated that he was back. At least Dana was in the arena. I think he hadn't been back for a little while at some of these recent events. I'm obviously only covering when they're here, and I didn't know if he was going to come. And I had said to myself, if Dana's there, I'm going to ask about Nate Diaz because he owes an explanation. And I didn't have to be the first one. That was Nolan King from MMA Junkie, who I hung out with after the event. And actually, really nice guy.
Nice. Yeah, did anybody? So I didn't see the whole Dana White post-fight press conference. However, did anybody ask him where he was at International Fight Week?
All I know is he was on vacation.
Okay.
According to Dana White, he was on vacation. Whatever. That's not my business to pry deeper, but it does feel strange, right?
If only we knew ahead of time when International Fight Week was going to be. We could plan around that.
I know. I mean, when I say it's not my business, I mean, yes, it is. It's the press's business to ask questions. But if he says he's on a vacation and I don't have any other, suspicions or rumors or have heard anything otherwise, what can I do? Then you start prying. It's like, guy, he answered your question. That's different. If you're not answering questions about Nate Diaz appropriately, we're going to ask follow-up questions. That we will definitely do. When they start bringing Jake Paul into it, I'm just like, because he started getting the Jake Paul questions. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm Dana, I actually am getting annoyed about that because that doesn't have to do with my business. So I can understand. But obviously, clicks got to be baited. So questions need to be asked, I guess. But you know what?
So let's get back to the fights.
We should get back to the fights. We should talk about, especially, which we've kind of danced around a bit, the end of this event didn't go down the way we would have hoped. Everyone was thinking, okay, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, they're homies in the words of Yair. That's how he'd always describe them. He says they're not like best friends, but he always says homies. That was his word. So it's a little disappointing that it didn't live up to everyone's expectations. The fact that we thought it'd be some sort of war, classic war or something like that. And we only got little less than a round where it there was some clinch sequences, but in the beginning it was actually really exciting. And it looked like maybe we were getting some interesting groundwork coming up at the end of the round. And then Brian Ortega's shoulder pops on him. You can see it happen. DC calls it out immediately. He's like, oh, shoulder pop. I was like, man, when I'm sitting cage side, by the way, just to give you a little bit of difference, like this sort of happened in front of me, but like I couldn't see Brian Ortega's back. So like, I don't even know what happened. I'm like, he's down, he's out. Like what happened? Like it took me a few minutes to even gather the information.
Yeah. At first I thought he tapped. Like that's almost what it seemed like to me. Because it almost reminded me of the fight before that where Lemos submitted Waterson Gomez.
And the tap that no one saw except for the fighters themselves.
Yeah, Lemos felt it, let go of it like the sportswoman that she is. And Waterson Gomez, like the sportswoman she is, said, yeah, I tapped. She didn't try to like play it off, which, you wouldn't expect her to do it. She seems like a pretty good sport. And
I would say very briefly, I blame Lemos for that. The referee was in the right spot. The referee was trying to get in the right position, looking at the face to make sure, like, hey, is she still conscious? And she taps on the far side, and then Lemos lets go. Don't let go. Lemos, you got to tell the ref. She tapped, and then, like, look for that. Then he can break it up.
I don't know. I think we got the right ending, though.
We did. Everything worked. All's well that ends well. But if we want to avoid it next time, that's the right thing.
Yeah, if it wasn't Michelle Waterson Gomez there and it's somebody else, maybe we don't get.
Maybe Chael Sonnen makes that fight a little weirder. It kind of happened once, and it was much easier to parse through what happened there. This time, I don't know. Prosperous in terms of results UFC career than Paddy Pimblett.
I could see that for sure. Yeah, I mean, like,
and eventually they will do England versus Wales, and that will be an interesting matchup.
Let's do it. Let's go. um, Molly McCann coming off of one of the best knockouts of the year. I mean, this seems like another showcase fight for her.
You get the sense that Molly McCann and Patty Pimblett are like contractually required to be on the same fights from now on because they're just such buddies.
Well, here's the thing. It makes sense because like one, they both just always fight in England. Whenever there's
I mean, that's going to happen, but they're just
and that's the best
good pals.
And it's always fun to see Molly out there with her bottle of Howler Head, completely wasted, watching her buddy Patty fight. And like, you know, they are a good duo. Like,
I realize we're doing promos for Dana's alcohol.
Well, I mean, that's what she was drinking. She was chugging Howler Head, which is hilarious to see her out there cage side. Like, and like nobody says anything. Like anybody else tries that, it's just like even another fighter, I have a feeling they would be like, no, you gotta go back. But she's like right there up on the cage, celebrating with Patty, and you know they're a fun duo together. You know, minus some of the stuff maybe Patty has said in the past, but you know, like
I don't like that stuff. That's kind of why he's kind of down
in the
moment a little bit.
In the moment when they're together celebrating, like I see why they always pair them up on the same card.
They are a wholesome pair. It's when they separate that Patty becomes a little less interesting to me. But, you know, that is what it is. But it looks like a good card on the whole. So let me ask you this: rate the main event on the 5-star scale.
I'm gonna say
of interest, of course.
3.5.
Okay, I was gonna go in there too. I think I'm at a 3.5. Close to a 4. I'd push more to the 4 than the 3. But yeah, I'll sit at 3.5. Yeah. What about the fight? The rest of the fight night card. How does this look to you?
I'm tempted to just stay with 3.5 for
Me
the rest
too.
of this fight card.
We're right there. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good names. There's some
very
good
similarly.
matchups.
I feel like oftentimes, sometimes we differ, but differ. But yeah, I think we're in the right spot.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on this card. I'm not as high on this as I was Long Island, but like you know, it's a overall pretty good fight card, and the headliner will tell us a lot about Tom Aspinall, especially. But you know, it's also going to be that
Curtis Blades too. If he wins, I mean, that's 2 in a row for him over some higher level heavyweights, and I mean, gosh, who knows which heavyweights are going to be stepping in the cage at any time soon. So, can Curtis Blades get himself to that elusive title fight, maybe an interim title fight or something like that? I don't know. I mean, a win here could do a lot for him. But same thing can be said for Tom Aspinall. So that's why there's some good intrigue. I'm really close to making this a 4, but I'm going with 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis Blades, he always feels one win away from being in the title discussion, and then something happens and he either gets passed over or he runs into either Francis Ngannou or Derek Lewis and gets knocked out. And it's unfortunate because like he has the skills to be a champion.
But he's also only 31, and that's like 24
baby
in heavyweight years. He could fight forever. You know, like these guys, heavyweights just last so long. So he's basically a baby still. I think Tom Aspinall is also, he's like 29 or 30. So they're very similar age. It's just Tom Aspinall, he'll be 30 next April. Not far apart in age. These guys, it may not even be the last time they fight, but I'm interested to see how it all goes down. But also, real quick, but I think before we switch over to gaming, so there is a Bellator card on Friday night. They are back in action. It's kind of a card that suffered from the loss of a main event, a title fight. So no disrespect meant to Douglas Lima and Jason Jackson. I think this is a much less satisfying matchup than the matchup that would have been between Patricky Pitbull. I always want to say Patricio, so I have to stop myself. Patricky Pitbull and Sydney Outlaw would have been the title challenger at 155 pounds. We lost that. Outlaw stayed on the card. He's got a new opponent in Tafik Musayev.
Do you think that's a smart?
But yeah, it's Lima in the welterweight title fight, or not title fight, main event.
Do you? What is your view on that? With when a guy or a woman has a title fight, the champion falls out, there's no interim title given in that place, but the fighter stays on the card and takes a short notice opponent. What is your opinion on that as a move for a career?
I mean, it depends. I mean, how much do they need the money? Because these guys, they don't fight, they don't get paid. It's a really
Yeah.
tough thing. I don't know what Sydney Outlaw is being paid by Bellator. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's not enough that he can just kind of rest on his laurels and wait for that title fight. Maybe he just needs to take the fight. You just don't know. So I
feel like
hate
it's
to
playing with
criticize
fire.
blanket wise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's always extenuating circumstances. I just see that and I'm just like, oh man, I hope that goes well for you, dude.
Mm-hmm. No,
because you would hate to see that.
Yeah, you kind of feel for people who have to make that choice, unfortunately. But even though those fights are still on the card, the one fight on this card that I would say, I guess I'll give you two fights on this card that I don't think you have Showtime right now, but let's say you, dear listener, do have Showtime and you want to check out this card. The two fights from Bellator Friday night that I am most interested in are Usman Nurmagomedov, who combines two of the greatest names in mixed martial arts, against Chris Gonzalez at 155 pounds. Nurmagomedov, he is not his cousin, but he is a very intriguing prospect. And I'm curious to see how he does in another test here. And then the other fight is Lorenz Larkin, who's been so much fun for so many years, going back to Strikeforce through UFC, Bellator as well. He's back down at 170. He kind of dipped back up to 85 for a little while. He'd actually been at 205 in Strikeforce, if you remember, sir.
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
way back.
Like,
he was a very soft 205.
Yeah. I think that this fight card for what it is, we lost the main event, but it's overall, it's fine.
As far as Bellator cards go, I think I like them doing the fewer cards that they've been doing lately. They maintain that this is not some sort of permanent change, but I kind of hope it is because I really think it allows the cards to get stacked better. But yeah, Larkin's going against Muhammad Burhamov. That'll be an interesting fight too. Burhamov's 15-1. So it could look like maybe it's an interesting showcase for the prospect in there, but I mean Larkin's so tough, so that's a really good hard challenge there. I like that fight.
Yeah, it's a bummer that we lost Patricky Pitbull. Like, you always everybody wants to watch the Pitbull brother fight because they're so talented, usually pretty good action, and there's a title on the line in this case, so it's a bummer for Bellator for that to happen, but here we are. I mean, we got Douglas Lima, who's a name, Jason Jackson, who's a name, and then a few other people that are recognizable to even not like the hardcore Bellator fans. So
sure,
it's something that if I had Showtime, which I don't anymore, but if I had Showtime and I had nothing else going on a Friday night, I might tune in for at least the top of the card.
Sure, absolutely. It looked awkward even at the time.
So
he says he broke it in round 2. That was round 2. It might have been that, but either way, he broke it in round 2. He says,
"Man, well, that if he is in fact out for a long time, I know hand injuries can be tricky.
He's had them before too. This is not even the first time he's broken that hand.
Man, you hate to see it.
Yeah,
but if he's out for a while, then yeah, maybe an interim title is justified. But
if it's a while, sure.
If it's a while, but I don't want any of this Francis Ngannou BS where it's like,
that was messed up.
He can't fight.
Hilariously, Francis Ngannou is out for a long time, and they're like, we don't need to do an interim title. Did we change the rules now? We always change the rules. That's the answer.
The goalposts just they aren't even planted in the ground. They're just on a wheeled cart, and then Conor McGregor's going to come through and throw that wheeled cart through a bus.
Yes. Dollies always get thrown at buses. Before we kind of move on, I think we got to hit our two basic questions. Who else impressed you on the card? Like who was like the most impressive person to you?
Might have been Li Jingnan.
Okay.
The Leech taking out the king of Kung Fu. Like he was impressive.
Okay.
I mean, Muslim Salikov was throwing some heat at him, and he was weathering the storm. He was dodging, he was dipping, he was diving, he was doing all the dodgeball stuff. And if you can dodge a spinning heel kick, you can dodge a ball. You know that?
That's true. That is how the saying goes.
And he took him out in that second round, and that was the big win that he needed, I think, coming off that Khamzat Chimaev just battering.
You know what's funny too? That was a second round finish. 6 out of the 8 fights that ended before the distance ended in the second round. Very strange anomaly, because you don't see that all that often. Usually, I feel like more often than not, it's a first round finish, or often. I mean, I think it's diminishing returns thereafter, second, third, fourth, fifth, even. But
I mean, I didn't see this fight happen, but from what I understand, Lauren Murphy just pieced up Miesha Tate.
She was the one who I thought was the most impressive because as much as people went into this fight expecting Miesha Tate to win, I certainly knew it was going to be a challenge, but I didn't think it was going to be like a total sweep for, I guess one judge gave Miesha Tate the third round, but by then the fight's already over anyway, more or less, without a finish. Miesha Tate fought hard, but Lauren Murphy, I mean, she busted up Miesha Tate's face in a way that we hadn't really seen Lauren Murphy do that type of work on her feet. She looked like a different fighter this weekend, and I would really like to see what she could do going forward. She's going to have to earn her way back to a second shot like she wants, but she could do it. I mean, if she gets the right wins, there's just not that many women out there who are in the hunt for it. So if she beats one or two more of them, she's back there.
Yeah, I think that the UFC was wanting Miesha Tate in a title fight so badly. First, it was going to be an attempt at 135. That didn't work out, obviously, when she ran into Ketlin Vieira. And now they tried to get her in this, which if she won this, she was absolutely going to fight Valentina next.
Oh, no question. Valentina sounded very interested in fighting her, too. I mean, Valentina's not a dummy. She understands that Miesha Tate carries some name, some interest. There's potential for, earning more money and earning more popularity and all that kind of thing there. So it really comes with the territory to be, if she was able to get that fight, it helps kind of everybody there. And obviously Miesha gets what she wants, she would get a title fight. But yeah, if Miesha Tate's going to get there, she's kind of run out of time. She has said before, she's not trying to do this for that much longer. She did the whole, Michael Chandler, I'm not in it for a long time, I'm in it for a good time kind of thing. So if she's going to get there, and she does have the name, but she just looks like if the fight is on the feet, she's in a lot of trouble with a lot of these modern fighters. And now that Lauren Murphy's been in the game a while, I wouldn't even necessarily think of her as a modern women's fighter, but yeah, she just couldn't hang.
It feels weird to close on this card talking about a fighter that didn't fight on this card. But it raises an interesting question of, all right, well, what is next for Valentina if it's not Miesha?
Yeah, I think probably it has to come out of this fight coming up in Paris, which it was Katlyn Chookagian against Manon Fiorot, and then it became Manon Fiorot against Jessica Andrade. And then just on Sunday, Brett Okamoto reports that Katlyn Chookagian's back in fighting against Manon Fiorot. So somehow we got a fight that changed two times and ended up back at the same one. I feel like that's got to be a first. I can't think of any time where that happened. So that is a weird one. But I think the winner out of that one is really the only thing that makes sense. Katlyn Chookagian I think she's essentially the top contender. So if Manon Fiorot beats her, she should be the top contender, and it's a fresh opponent. And if Katlyn Chookagian wins, then she's gotten a few wins under her belt. And there's really nobody else. Just book the rematch. I think that's what you got to do.
If Katlyn Chookagian wins, I don't want to see that fight. What I would rather see is Valentina go up and fight the winner of Peña Nunes.
That is the other option. But if we're talking about her division, that's the way to go. But yeah, the winner of that title fight, let her go for champ at that point. She's cleared out her division pretty thoroughly.
Especially if it's Juliana Peña again.
That's Valentina's a tasty matchup for her, I would have to think. She knows she's beaten her before, and both women have gotten better. Of course, years have passed now. They're going to be different women. Same thing even with Amanda Nunes, although Amanda is getting a little more long in the tooth now. So that's where you wonder. It's like, okay, can she fight her off a third time? I don't know. There's a lot of intrigue there. So you're right. That is easily the most interesting matchup for her in particular. But her division, that's what I would say it is. Before we even close out, though, we got to ask, how did the event compare to your expectations? Because we had kind of an imbalance here, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was overall, the card seems to have lived up to expectations until the main event.
Right.
And then the main event absolutely did not live up to expectations,
And I will say, having been there live, there were several fans behind me shouting and calling Brian Ortega, I don't like to say the word, but that P word, the one about the cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, do you even know who Brian Ortega is? Like, he got outstruck a combined, I think it's 600 or something like that to like 200. It's somewhere in that ballpark by the two best fighters his division has had in the last several years. This is
Literally
someone who
one of the
didn't quit
toughest
in those fights. He was told you can't fight anymore or the fight ended. The dude is tough. If he's hurt, he's hurt.
Yeah, he's literally one of the toughest fighters on the UFC roster. And
Absolutely.
Anybody calling him anything other than that is a total casual and deserves to be called as such.
Yeah, I didn't really love the Strong Island crowd. They were very impatient with literally anything that had to do with clinching. There was the whole USA chants, which, yeah, okay, fine. There's some patriotism there, but sometimes it feels more like nationalism and crosses over into So I don't know.
Yeah,
not my favorite of crowds.
Weird,
I think they're a little bit better at Madison Square Garden, and also New Jersey's much better than Long Island. I'd rather go west than east.
We have a fight night card coming up this Saturday, Scott.
We do.
And I guess it's technically a fight night, even though it's going to be happening at noon your time.
Taking place at night in the country of origin.
It is. And that is
England,
UFC
London. Foggy London town.
Boy, oh boy, is this a big fight for the headliner, though, in his home country.
It's a large fight, too.
It's a very large fight.
These are large men. Curtis Blaydes and Tom Aspinall.
There are a few things in this world the UFC loves more than a heavyweight main event.
They do, but this is a legit one. This is a really good one. Like I don't get excited for heavyweight MMA, but Tom Aspinall has been fascinating to me for quite a while. I talked to him briefly during the week from a Q&A series, and he's got a big challenge here against the wrestler in Curtis Blaydes. Now, Curtis Blaydes is more than that, but also this is something I think Tom is like, yeah, this is more wrestling than I've ever done before. So it was a lot of wrestling that he had to prepare for. I'm curious how he can handle that. Blaydes could easily just take it down into his world, but also if he can't finish him, I wonder who gets to last longer. Who's going to do better in those later rounds? Is it Tom Aspinall? Maybe.
I mean, that's just a huge step up for him. And this is going to really tell us a lot about, anybody fighting Curtis Blaydes tells us a lot about that fighter, right?
Yeah.
Because Curtis Blaydes is one of the most difficult challenges, I would say, in the heavyweight division, just from a pure skill set standpoint. Like, obviously, he's an amazing fighter in his own right, but like, he's brings
unique
something
in the modern, like the 22 version of the heavyweight division in mixed martial arts. I feel like for a while it was a lot of big wrestlers, and now it's kind of moved away from that.
God, but like this entire card is pretty stacked with just British and like just that region of the world talent. Like,
yep.
And of course, we lost Darren Till, which is a big blow to like the recognizability and like mainstream name recognition of like British talent and like one of the biggest British stars, and he hasn't fought in a while either. So that was a bummer, but we got Chris Curtis stepping in for him to fight Jack Hermanson.
We get the Action Man against the Joker. This is a very comic book matchup here.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, it's wonderful. I love it. And Curtis, by the way, Curtis, I keep calling him Curtis. It's Chris Curtis. When he saw on Twitter yesterday, he had shared a series of photos. It was him with Aljamain Sterling to the left and Curtis Blaydes to the right. And then in the other photo, it was Machop, Machoke, and Machamp. So the
I did see that
being the evolution Pokemon-wise of these men. And I got a kick out of that. I was like, so does Chris Curtis turn into Curtis Blaydes by being traded? Is that how it works?
I mean, I guess
Pokemon wise, that's how it would work, right?
I mean, he just has to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Just get a fight in Vegas and hit one of those crab leg buffets.
That's true. What? Chris Curtis is evolving.
But yeah, like, then we have this is a big fight for Paddy Pimblett. Speaking of like a step up. Like Jordan Levitt's no joke, man.
Absolutely. I like this matchup in terms of competitive balance and really testing Paddy Pimblett, because we've seen Paddy Pimblett get some, let's be polite and say showcase fights.
Yeah.
That's how they felt. That is not what I get the sense of when we have Jordan Levitt here. Jordan Levitt is a no joke submission grappler, especially. And I think we've seen Paddy Pimblett do some of his best work on the mat. So I wonder how he can handle that. I like Jordan Levitt. He's an interesting character too. So, and also just the simple fact that Paddy Pimblett went from like what was he, like 295 pounds between fights to he's going to fight at 155 pounds again. It's like, wow. Sometimes you always wonder, it's like, man, is he just playing with like fat filters on his phone to make himself look bigger than he really is? But
it's unbelievable the fluctuation of weight this guy. I mean, eventually he's got to move up to 170 once he gets a little either that or get his diet under control when he's not in fight camp.
Get the diet under control. He probably should be fighting here. But yeah, he is more or less the Christian Bale of mixed martial arts.
Hey man, if he can really like shore up some of his striking and like not leave his chin out there so much, like I think we have a future light heavyweight champion in Paddy Pimblett.
Oh, I will not go that far, sir. You are much more high on him than I am. I
mean, the joke there being the light heavyweight.
Oh, now I hear you. I missed it. Light heavyweight, lightweight. You got me mixed up there. Crossed up. No, but I don't see championship
no, I don't
fights for him even in general. I understand what you're saying, but no, he just seems to me like he's gonna be a fun action fighter and people will enjoy his personality, or some won't. But yeah, that's what I see for him. But this is an interesting test. I'm more interested in the two fights that I'm actually most interested in on this card, outside of the top two, are the two at 205 pounds. Paul Craig against Volkan Ozdemir, and then Nikita Krylov against Alexander Gustafsson.
See, I look at Krylov versus Gustafsson, and I'm like, I could see that fight being kind of boring, actually.
But I'm interested in so much as what is Alexander Gustafsson now? Because this is where he should be fighting in terms of weight. And I just want to know, like, does he have another run in him? Like, I don't know if he does. Like, I don't want to sit here and say, like, I believe he does. I'm legitimately 50-50. I'm like, I want to know what he is today. So that's why I'm very curious about the matchup. And Krylov's no joke either. But more importantly, I'm really more interested in Paul Craig, he's got some really big wins under his belt. He's got wins over Jamal Hill and Magomed Ankalaev, you could probably argue that these are the other two guys that could be fighting for the title within a year. So if he's got wins over them,
those have aged very well.
Some losses too. A win over Volkan Ozdemir, that should really put him on the map again. And I think you'd have to start talking about him as a potential title challenger.
And I absolutely favor Paul Craig in this fight. Like Volkan Ozdemir, he's a name just because he fought Daniel Cormier for the title and he had a good run a few years ago.
He had those like 2 or 3 like quick victories on the way to the title. He had like such a fast rise to the title fight, but I never thought he was like true championship contender, I guess.
There's a 5-fight stretch here that I am just completely really excited for. It starts with Mohamed Mokaev.
Yeah, a lot of people like that one.
Makwan Amirkhani, I like watching him fight. It's not like I'm not like super high on him, but he's always, I feel like he's either very entertaining or very not. But I don't know. I enjoy him. I've actually been higher on maybe than what he's earned, but I've been higher on Nathaniel Wood than
I like Nathaniel Wood.
I think he's up
at 45 now though. He's usually a bantamweight. Now he's 45.
He's fighting Charles Rosa.
Yeah.
Which that's a tough challenge, but I think it's a winnable fight.
It's a good test. Like that's like an appropriate test in his first fight at featherweight in the UFC.
Well, you saw how he looked before, like I guess back in March when he was making that cut, and like how just completely drained Nathaniel Wood was at 135. Like,
no, he's doing the right thing now at this weight. This is good.
And then Mark Chikasi. I always love a good Mark Chikasi fight.
Okay, yeah, he's fun.
Yeah. Of course, leading right into Paul Craig and Volkan Ozdemir.
Yeah. So I actually and this is early in the morning for us stateside, especially you're even an hour behind me. Mason Jones against Ludovic Klein. I like Mason Jones as a prospect. There's so many fighters that I think are much more interesting as prospects at 155 pounds if you take personality out of it completely than Paddy Pimblett. Mm-hmm. And I think Mason Jones is one of them. I want to see what his progress is going to be like. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I feel like he can have a more prosperous in terms of results UFC career than Paddy Pimblett.
I could see that for sure. Yeah, I mean, like,
and eventually they will do England versus Wales, and that will be an interesting matchup.
Let's do it. Let's go. Molly McCann coming off of one of the best knockouts of the year. I mean, this seems like another showcase fight for her.
You get the sense that Molly McCann and Patty Pimblett are like contractually required to be on the same fights from now on because they're just such buddies.
Well, here's the thing. It makes sense because like one, they both just always fight in England. Whenever there's
I mean, that's going to happen, but they're just
and that's the best
good pals.
And it's always fun to see Molly out there with her bottle of Howler Head, completely wasted, watching her buddy Patty fight. And like, they are a good duo. Like,
I realize we're doing promos for Dana's alcohol.
Well, I mean, that's what she was drinking. She was chugging Howler Head, which is hilarious to see her out there cage side. And nobody says anything. Like anybody else tries that, it's just like even another fighter, I have a feeling they would be like, no, you gotta go back. But she's like right there up on the cage, celebrating with Patty, and they're a fun duo together. Minus some of the stuff maybe Patty has said in the past, but I
don't like that stuff. That's kind of why he's kind of down
in the
moment
moment
a little bit.
In the moment when they're together celebrating, like I see why they always pair them up on the same card.
They are a wholesome pair. It's when they separate that Patty becomes a little less interesting to me. But that is exactly what it is. But it looks like a good card on the whole. So let me ask you this: rate the main event on the 5-star scale.
I'm gonna say
of interest, of course.
3.5.
Okay, I was gonna go in there too. I think I'm at a 3.5, close to a 4. I'd push more to the 4 than the 3. But yeah, I'll sit at 3.5. Yeah. What about the fight? The rest of the fight night card. How does this look to you?
I'm tempted to just stay with 3.5 for the rest
of
this fight card.
We're right there. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good names.
We
there's
think
some
very
good
similarly.
matchups.
I feel like oftentimes, sometimes we differ, but differ. But yeah, I think we're in the right spot.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on this card. I'm not as high on this as I was Long Island, but it's a overall pretty good fight card. And the headliner will tell us a lot about Tom Aspinall, especially. But it's also going to be either that or
his Blades too. If he wins, I mean, that's 2 in a row for him over some higher level heavyweights. And I mean, gosh, who knows which heavyweights are going to be stepping in the cage at any time soon. So can Curtis Blades get himself to that elusive title fight, maybe an interim title fight or something like that? I don't know. I mean, a win here could do a lot for him, but same thing can be said for Tom Aspinall. So that's why there's some good intrigue. I'm really close to making this a 4, but I'm going with 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis Blades, he always feels one win away from being in the title discussion, and then something happens and he either gets passed over or he runs into either Francis Ngannou or Derek Lewis and gets knocked out. And it's unfortunate because he has the skills to be a champion.
But he's also only 31, and that's like
a
24
baby
in heavyweight years. He could fight forever. These guys, heavyweights just last so long. So he's basically a baby still. I think Tom Aspinall is also, he's like 29 or 30. So they're very similar age. It's just Tom Aspinall, he'll be 30 next April. Not far apart in age. These guys, it may not even be the last time they fight, but I'm interested to see how it all goes down. But also, real quick, but I think before we switch over to gaming, so there is a Bellator card on Friday night. They are back in action. It's kind of a card that suffered from the loss of a main event, a title fight. So no disrespect meant to Douglas Lima and Jason Jackson. I think this is a much less satisfying matchup than the matchup that would have been between Patricky Pitbull. I always want to say Patricio, so I have to stop myself. Patricky Pitbull and Sydney Outlaw would have been the title challenger at 155 pounds. We lost that. Outlaw stayed on the card. He's got a new opponent in Tafiq Musayev.
Do you think that's a smart?
But yeah, it's Lima in the welterweight title fight, or not title fight, main event.
Do you? What is your view on that? With when a guy or a woman has a title fight, the champion falls out. There's no interim title given in that place, but the fighter stays on the card and takes a short notice opponent. What is your opinion on that as a move, for a career?
I mean, it depends. I mean, how much they need the money? Because these guys, they don't fight, they don't get paid. It's a really tough thing. I don't know what Sydney Outlaw is being paid by Bellator. Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's not enough that he can just kind of rest on his laurels and wait for that title fight. Maybe he just needs to take the fight. You just don't know. So I
feel like it's
to
playing with fire
blanket wise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's always extenuating circumstances. I just see that and I'm just like, oh man, I hope that goes well for you, dude.
Mm-hmm. No, because
you would hate to see that.
Yeah, you kind of feel for people who have to make that choice, unfortunately. But even though those fights are still on the card, the one fight on this card that I would say, I guess I'll give you two fights on this card that I don't think you have Showtime right now, but let's say you, dear listener, do have Showtime and you want to check out this card. The two fights from Bellator Friday night that I am most interested in are Usman Nurmagomedov, who combines two of the greatest names in mixed martial arts, against Chris Gonzalez at 155 pounds. Nurmagomedov, he is not his cousin, but he is a very intriguing prospect. And I'm curious to see how he does in another test here. And then the other fight is Lorenz Larkin, who's been so much fun for so many years, going back to Strikeforce through UFC, Bellator as well. He's back down at 170. He kind of dipped back up to 85 for a little while. He'd actually been at 205 in Strikeforce, if you remember, sir.
Yeah. Wow. I mean,
way back.
He
was a very soft 205.
Yeah. I think that this fight card for what it is, we lost the main event, but it's overall, it's fine.
As far as Bellator cards go, I think I like them doing the fewer cards that they've been doing lately. They maintain that this is not some sort of permanent change, but I kind of hope it is because I really think it allows the cards to get stacked better. But yeah, Larkin's going against Muhammad Burhamov. That'll be an interesting fight too. Burhamov's 15-1. So it could look like maybe it's an interesting showcase for the prospect in there, but I mean Larkin's so tough, so that's a really good hard challenge there. I like that fight.
Yeah, it's a bummer that we lost Patricky Pitbull. You always everybody wants to watch the Pitbull brother fight because they're so talented, usually pretty good action, and there's a title on the line in this case, so it's a bummer for Bellator for that to happen, but here we are. I mean, we got Douglas Lima, who's a name, Jason Jackson, who's a name, and then a few other people that are recognizable to even not like the hardcore Bellator fans. So
sure,
it's something that if I had Showtime, which I don't anymore, but if I had Showtime and I had nothing else going on a Friday night, I might tune in for at least the top of the card.
Sure, absolutely.
Anyway, Scott, I think it's far past time that we jump over to the gaming side of things. What have you been playing? Because, there's not a ton of huge news, but we're going to run down some of the stuff here. But I think gaming's a little lighter this week. I talked endlessly about Sonic Frontiers. And, if you want to see that, you can go on GameInformer.com for all my in-depth coverage of that. But what have you been playing?
I had almost no time to game this week between all of the UFC coverage that I was doing for the New York Post. But I did have a little bit of time to finally complete and get the platinum for TMNT Shredder's Revenge. I beat the game on hard, on arcade. That was my last challenge. Did it with a bunch of randoms. That was tough, but it was a lot of fun. You got the right group, you can do it. Sometimes you get some people who maybe aren't as familiar with the ways that you should handle certain challenges in the levels and stuff like that. But once you get the right guys, it's like, man, you just wreck shop and it's a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations on that. And
thank you.
So are you going to keep playing this game? Because you've been talking about it for weeks now. You're going to keep playing, even though you've platinumed it. You've done everything there is to do in this game. This is just like the game you're going to keep returning to over and over again.
This does not feel like a game that I've washed my hands of. And a lot of times when I do platinum games, I do kind of feel like, all right, I think I'm done. But that was never what this game was about. It was just, I really do like the challenges within the game in and of itself, even independent of the trophies. I just kind of wanted to get them because I'm like, hey, I can do it, and I love this game. But no, I like playing it in front of my kids. They enjoy watching me. I like playing it for myself. I played with a buddy the other day. There's still a lot of friends who I haven't had the time to play through the campaign with them as well. So I'm very much looking forward to continuing playing this game. But I will probably not be in-depthly updating anybody about what I've been up to because there's nothing more to accomplish. If I have been playing it, I'll just be like, yeah, a little more of that this week.
Well, I have been playing Power Wash Simulator because I was like, all right, let me check out. This was the thing where I only had a couple nights to game this week.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to check out some of these things that like I haven't checked out yet, but like I should. So Power Wash Simulator is a game that's been getting a little bit of buzz on social media.
I had heard of it.
Basically it's exactly what it is. Like you get into like this scenario and you have a power washer. You can choose different like nozzles and different like attachments and everything, and your job is to just wash off all the dirt. And the first one is like, all right, you're cleaning a van, so it's like a filthy van, just wash it all off. And you can push a button and it'll highlight all the dirt, so like if you're missing something you can be like, yep, I'm gonna make sure I hit all the dirt and clean all the different parts individually, and it tells you when you fully cleaned one of the parts. And so I did the van. I'm like, all right, that took me about 7 or 8 minutes. I'm fine with that. The next level feels like it immediately warped me to the last level, because it was like, now you're cleaning an entire backyard with like patio furniture, fences, pool. I was about 20 minutes in, and I pushed like the button to see like where all the dirt was, and it looked like I had another hour of work, and I'm like, uninstall.
Yeah, like, you know what? As you're describing it, I'm really just reminded of how much yard work I have to do. So yeah, I think probably if I ever even entertained the idea of Power Wash Simulator, I'd be like, well, I better power wash my backyard first.
It was entertaining for a little bit, and it was like a good podcast game for a little bit, and it was satisfying, but like it just seemed like so much work, and I did not want to play it anymore. So I uninstalled that.
For some people, they love that Zen, I guess, right?
And I do normally, but like for some, like this just it didn't feel like something I wanted to do for longer than like 30 minutes.
Gotcha. I understand.
Then I fired up FIFA 22, and I'm like, I haven't played a FIFA game in maybe a decade and a half.
Oh wow, okay. So
it's been a long time.
I'm not very good though.
All I will say, because I'm only a couple games in, I decided to do the career mode, which is like, you know, the single player career mode. Because that's typically like the modes I enjoy. When I play MLB The Show, when I play Madden, those are the modes that I most gravitate toward. Road to the Show, whatever they call the career mode, face of the franchise. But if I'm not playing straight up franchise mode, I'm playing the career mode, like the single player career mode. So that's what I did with FIFA 22. And I will say, FIFA makes a lot more money than Madden. And people give Madden so much crap for being like glitchy or incomplete. In my limited experience with FIFA 22, good God, is it so glitchy? It is so much glitchy. It's like, so yesterday I went to a Minnesota Twins game.
I saw that. Good for you.
I tweeted that as an Orioles fan, so, you know, the Orioles, traditionally the worst team in baseball over the last couple of decades.
Last few years.
Traditionally just a terrible team ever since the late 90s. Even as an Orioles fan, I was tweeting like, wow, the Twins are bad. They lost, at least when I left in the 9th inning, they lost 10-0, or they were losing 10-0.
But they were leading the division, I think, for a little while.
They had one hit over the course of the game. It was a bad performance, and like the team is not good. And like that's almost how I feel. It's like I'm a Madden fan, and I acknowledge that, like, you know, Madden games are often glitchy, especially at launch. But even as a Madden fan, a person who plays Madden year after year after year, FIFA is glitchy as hell, man.
And you're playing a FIFA version that has been out for many, many months. Like at this point, they're probably done patching things.
Yeah, so that's my limited experience with FIFA. I'm still even getting the hang of the controls. That's how new I am to this game. But even like 3 matches in,
there is a lot. If you haven't been playing year after year after year, you do have to kind of do those tutorials, I feel like.
Oh, I'm not doing that.
Then good luck to you, sir.
I'm just going to go in and kick a ball.
Yeah.
But then the other thing I'm playing real quick, I'm still playing Horizon Forbidden West. I'm finally getting to the point where it's opening up more. The story is really starting to like...
You're through the onboarding.
Get its feet under it. And I'm like, all right, this is the Horizon that I loved back in the day. Because like, it's a few hours in the beginning where it's a little bit of a slog, like getting caught up on the story, getting caught up with what characters are doing. Why doesn't she have all of her upgrades anymore? And it's just like, you know, there's a lot of storytelling that happens in the beginning, a lot of tutorialization that happens in the beginning. And I think I'm finally starting to get through that. And, I'm looking forward to really being able to lose myself in that giant open world once again, because I loved that first game so much. I'm hoping that this will begin to grab me in the ways that that one did back in the day.
Make sure you lose yourself in the music, the moment. You own it. Never let it
go. Genesis Mini 2 was announced. Are you a big fan of these mini consoles, Scott?
Yeah, I am actually. I own the NES Classic, I own the SNES Classic, and I do own the Genesis Mini.
So, do you know anything about the Genesis Mini 2?
I had heard there was going to be a Mega Drive 2, right? That's the I guess the PAL version, the international version. And I assumed that there was going to be a Genesis one too.
It's so weird because it was announced kind of. Basically, it came out on Amazon, like an Amazon page leaked that there's a Genesis Mini 2. And it was like, all right, well, this is like a weird like listing. Like it looks like it's a third party seller. It's international shipping, even though it's a US console. It says you have to buy it from Amazon Japan, and there's like $30 shipping, and it's $108 to begin with. And it's like, it just, there's no official announcement. And then suddenly Sega put up a website, and the link is to that like weird like third party seller if like you want to pre-order. And it's like, what are they doing here? So it's like Sega just put up a website to confirm, yeah, this is real. They didn't ever send out like a press release that I saw. And then it was like, all right, well, it's like some of the Genesis games that we didn't put on the first Genesis Mini plus Sega CD games, which that's kind of cool. But
I guess that's cool.
It's also like, all right, well, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's the only, like, there's not a whole lot of games that I am excited for on this one. But the good thing, however, is that it gives you the 6-button Genesis controller instead of just the 3-button controller, which is a substantially better controller, especially for some games like Street Fighter 2.
Right. Yeah. No, that is a nice thing to hear. But I feel like I would be more interested in just acquiring said controller for my original Genesis.
So it says that the Genesis Mini 1 controller works for the Genesis Mini 2. So I'm wondering if it's like cross compatible. You know,
I mean,
I wonder.
You would think it has to be. It's just adding the other buttons. Like, and if it's not, I mean, we'll find out. But man, if it's not, that is not the right approach.
Yeah, but you know, it looks like it's an Amazon exclusive, and there's several games announced so far. I think they said there's going to be over 50, but like right now, it's games like Sonic 3D Blast, which that was more of a tech demo. Like, hey, look how far we can push the Genesis technology. Sonic CD, which we just got Sonic Origins, which has Sonic CD in it, and it's not as elusive as it once was. It's like when Final Fantasy VII like was re-released digitally for the first time. It was like, oh my god, this game is so like rare and so expensive. This is amazing. Or like if Marvel vs. Capcom 2 ever got re-released again, it would remove some of the novelty of having something come out with that in the system. But still, Sonic CD is a well-liked game, even if it's one of the worst 2D Sonic games. And
honestly, my gut reaction to the Genesis Mini is I think I would skip it, as much as I do like those mini consoles and things like that. I'm really at the point where it's like, just give me the N64 Classic, Nintendo. Like, I want that one day. I don't think they ever will, though. I just have a feeling they're not.
Something I definitely want as well. Like it's always the thing of like, I'm just going to play these games on my Switch. Sure. Like my Switch has all of these systems,
and I think that's why they won't do it anymore, because they realize that's the better way to go.
Yeah, so I am happy with that. I got the N64 controller for the Switch.
Okay.
So it came in stock very briefly, and I'm glad that I was able to snatch one up. And yeah, it's a lot better than using the Pro Controller. I will say that Pro Controller works great for Genesis, SNES, and NES. It works like garbage for N64 because that controller is so unique and so different that it just doesn't feel right. That's why I was like, I've got to get this N64 controller.
That makes sense. And I'll keep that in mind too when I do end up kind of going that route and playing. Because I don't have the expansion pass of Nintendo Online right now.
It's really cool. I recommend it, especially if you're an N64 guy, which I know you are.
Yes, I am. So what else is going on this week? We don't have too much more.
No, not a whole lot. So Skate is a franchise that a lot of people are excited for. I was always more of a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater guy myself, but Skate has a lot of love and a lot of fans behind it. EA announced that Skate was coming back, I think last year, maybe 2020 was when they made that announcement that they're making a new Skate game. And it's seeming like maybe it might be a bit of a monkey paw situation here where, oh man, I really wish they'd make a new skate game. I really wish they made a new skate game. And then like they say they're going to make one. And it's like, all right, well, first of all, it's going to be free to play,
which sounds good.
It could be good. It could be bad. Second of all, they say it's going to be a live service game. They said, all right, there's not going to be a skate 5 through 10. It's just going to be this game that we build upon over and over and over again, which again could be good, could be bad. With EA, I tend to lean towards maybe it won't be the good kind of free to play, the good kind
Definitely
of live service.
Feel. Yeah, that's a fair way to feel.
This is the company that brought us Anthem, which basically was one of the most underwhelming live service games that we've had in some time. I mean,
but what made that one hurt even more was you paid $60 for it out front.
Exactly.
This one at least is free. So if you don't like it, all you lost is time.
But I worry that will mean that like they're just going to try to bleed us dry for any cool thing in the game.
They might. That is true. I guess it depends on the type of microtransaction, downloadable content, what have you, whatever you want to call it, that they bring about. So, but I honestly, there's reason to be skeptical for all the reasons you said. But I am intrigued. Not that I'm a skate guy, but I would check it out if it's free. Actually, I'm more likely to play it now that it's free to play than I am if I had to go buy it.
Look, I mean, there are good free-to-play games. I'm still excited for Overwatch 2, but I'm also approaching with that cautious optimism of like, all right, there's ways that you can very easily sabotage a free-to-play game. And I worry that Overwatch 2 is going to fall in that camp, but I'm even more worried about this new skate.
But I would think you'd be more worried about Overwatch just because it's actually a game you care about.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like in terms of like the company's practices.
Sure.
Like, I get you. Trust me, Activision Blizzard has a lot of terrible practices. There's many. I think we've talked about it on the show, but like, we terrible, know about it. Sexual misconduct allegations, like just terrible treatment of employees. These are all allegations that are actually being investigated by the state of California currently. Oh, yeah. But like EA, it has a long history of not. I mean, it's an inside, or not even inside joke. It's an industry joke, basically, that like they will monetize whatever they can.
Sure.
So that's the concern with this skate game. But I'm
of course had that tweet a few weeks back about how she's a 10, but she only plays single player games. That didn't go over very well.
No, it didn't. I understand what they were going for because like they basically the whole point was she won't play games with you. Like you won't be able to play games with her. But like
Is that what they meant? Because I didn't even read it that way. And I was trying to give them like just a little bit of a benefit of the doubt.
I thought it was. I thought that was them saying like she only plays single player games. So you can't play video games with her. Like she'll only play by herself. But this is also the company that notoriously it was notorious for like kind of forcing multiplayer into everything back in like the Mass Effect 3 days.
I think they've also said things before too. Like certain people have said things in the past, like to the effect of like single player games. And so there's a lot of like, I feel like there's a lot of heavy connotations that came along with it that nobody realized that they didn't realize the degree of the shit that they stepped in.
Yeah. But two Nintendo things, and then we can wrap up here. Bayonetta 3 got a release date.
You like the Bayonetta series?
No.
I actually kind of liked Bayonetta 2. I haven't played the first one, but yeah, so.
I mean, I don't dislike it. I just never really devoted that much time to it.
Okay.
But yeah, it has a release date, October 28th. And then Kirby's Dream Buffet. Have you ever played Fall Guys?
No, I didn't. I know a lot of people that did.
You should play Fall Guys. It's a lot of fun. Just basically a Wipeout or American. I'd say Wipeout is more of like the analog here, where it's like everybody's running through an obstacle course and like people get eliminated round after round, and then the last person standing is the winner. It's very fun. It's like the most fun twist on Battle Royale for people who don't like games like Fortnite or Apex Legends, where it's like all about shooting and everything. Right. If you just want like a fun, family-friendly Battle Royale game, this is it. It's more about not getting eliminated by the course or not getting eliminated by the timer than it is any kind of violence against other players.
Gotcha.
But Kirby's Dream Buffet seems to take a page out of that book. It is 4 Kirbys that roll through the obstacle course, basically collecting strawberries, and they can like use abilities to like impede their opponents. And I guess the Kirby that ends with the most strawberries collected, and like I'm assuming there's a big strawberry at the end that makes you grow a lot at the end, like if you're the first person to finish. But it seems like they're taking a page out of that book, but it's only 4 players, so it seems kind of like a half-hearted attempt to copy Fall Guys, because Fall Guys is like 100 players or 60
maybe
players,
it most
something like that.
definitely is
something
a
like
half-hearted
wild,
attempt, or maybe a like intended at-home experience or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's you have to play locally with other players, so I don't think it's online even, like, or maybe they haven't announced online yet. But yeah, that's really, I mean, that's the biggest news of the week. There's not a whole lot going on. So, I mean, we're actually, something to talk about before we do wrap up here, Scott, is we are actually going to have to pre-record next week's episode, because
that is true. We should let people know this.
I mean, I'm going to be on the East Coast starting Wednesday, potentially. I mean, it's kind of a weird, fluid situation with my mom getting a positive test for COVID, and we were supposed to go visit her.
I mean, not fun. I hope she's well.
She's doing fine by all indications, but like, you know, we're trying to make sure we're being responsible with, all right, should we still go visit? And then like, so we're monitoring it day by day. So the trip might be canceled, the trip might not be canceled. But like, she's right on the edge of like, all right, well, her exposure was this time, or potential exposure was this time. CDC says 5 days. If like fever is improving and symptoms or fever's gone and symptoms are improving, you're good after 5 days, is what it says to end isolation. And it's like, when we would visit would be like day 6, and it's like, all right, that's like right on the edge there.
Certainly cutting it close. Yeah,
it is. Both my girlfriend and I are fully boosted, and you know, we both had it in May. So like, I think unless my mom takes a turn where she gets worse, because she's actually been feeling a lot better day over day. If she takes a turn and like, you know, she kind of relapses into the COVID symptoms, we will probably cancel the trip. But of course, that's inconsequential, because you also are going to be away.
Yeah, I won't even have the real ability or time to record, because I'm going up to Niagara Falls, or Niagara, New York. Not going over to the Canada side. There is the Association of Boxing Commissions is having their annual conference, so I'm going up there. I'm going to do some referee and judge training. We're going to cover the conference itself. I'm excited to do this. This is it's a neat to go on like a work trip like this. And yeah, it'll be a good time. So yeah, we definitely won't be able to do it, but we've got something fun in store. So keep your ears peeled for what we've got for you next week. That's not going to have anything to do with what's going on in the current MMA or gaming landscape.
Yeah, well, luckily, you know, we talked about this card coming up this weekend is a pretty solid card, but we don't have, it's not like we're missing a pay-per-view or anything like that. Like, this is timed well.
Maybe we should pretend like we knew what happened.
Yeah, we're going to start the next episode. Oh, man, I can't believe those fights.
Boy, did you see those fights? They were wild.
Yeah,
I just couldn't believe they were either as good or as bad as we thought they were going to be.
Did you see that guy? He punched the other guy.
There was another, and there was a grappling moment, and fans were there. And then they had crumpets and tea.
We'll be talking some kind of more evergreen topics on next week's show, barring any catastrophic recording problems that make it so we don't get an episode next week.
Oh, goodness gracious. I hope not. But you know what? Yeah, let's wrap it up here. If you like this one, if you like our episodes, if you like this show, make sure you subscribe. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, we're all over the place. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow our social handles at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you'd rather reach us in a more formal capacity with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you are hyped about, you can hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next week.